we're going to move into our didactic, and I'm going to introduce you to Georgia McKown. So she's our program manager for effective data systems and professional learning. And some of you may have met her at a DBC day or at the professional learning day. And we're excited to have her here to talk to us about teaming.
Thanks,
Georgia?
Karen. Hey, everybody. I'm glad to be here today talking about teaming with you. After our session, there's 4 things you'll be able to do. Our team jokes that I'm the queen of the learning objectives, so I surely wasn't going to miss the opportunity to recap them here. So you'll be able to review your team meetings and identify things that are going well and features you might want to develop. You'll be able to apply the BASC team meeting resources and evaluate and improve your team meeting effectiveness. You'll be able to maximize the impact of your role in team meetings, and then you'll be able to redeliver this content to your relevant learners, which is likely the other members of your school team. All right, so as we get started, I want you to think about a productive team meeting that you've had and reflect on what was productive or what you would imagine a productive team meeting to look like. Maybe if you haven't felt like you've been in one in a while. What did the teamwork for the meeting look like? A lot of you highlighted that teamwork is your superpower, so I'm excited to see this. And what words would you use to describe the effective teamwork of the meeting? So in the chat, give us a few words that represent a strong, highly effective team meeting over in the chat. Ooh, collaborative, I love that. Intentional, problem solving, organized. Ooh, staying on topic. Yep, that's a hard one. Clear agenda. Steven's stealing my notes. He must have clicked forward in the slides. Just kidding. Honest communication, active listening, having norms, leveraging the norms for sure, making progress, action steps. I made clear objectives. Thanks, Sarah. You know, I love the objectives. Well, it seems like you all know where we're headed on this journey, and that we agree on what a productive meeting should look like. Maybe not every meeting in our lives has looked that way. So, Karen, will you take me to the next slide? Let's talk about what Tier 1 MTSS-B team meetings should look like. So, I'm going to go clockwise here, but we're living the team norms. You wrote those school-wide norms. That's for everybody in the school, including you when you're having meetings, right? Defined roles in the meetings. Who's in charge of what? Regularly utilizing and updating your action plan. Using data to make the decisions. And consistently engaging with your school community. Everything's not just made in this meeting and then imposed on everybody else in the school community, right? There's a formal process to monitor the impact of the work that you're doing, and there is a systematic way of evaluating the outcomes that come from those interventions. And then thinking about prioritizing those monthly meetings with a purposeful agenda. A lot of us mentioned objectives and staying on topic. For me personally, I have a lot of anxiety walking into a meeting when I have no idea what it's about or who's going to be there. So we can assuage that for the people that we work with by leveraging these procedures for effective meetings. So what makes a good meeting if we really had to break it down? Well, the first is that the team members attend the meetings. It's really hard to have a meeting if no one else is there. That's not a meeting, that's just you doing your work. So the team members need to be there promptly and regularly. The same people are showing up every time so that they can contribute. It's always hard when you have a wild card popping into your meeting who throws off kind of the productivity or the discussion. Then you need to have access to previous meeting minutes. They need to be presented and discussed. What did we decide last time? Where did we land on that? That's really important. The data are shared with the team to guide discussion and problem solving. Everyone has the opportunity to interact with the data and use it and interpret it together. The action items are clearly outlined. Who's going to do it? What are they going to do? When is it going to be finished? Maybe what's the status of that particular action item? There needs to be space for goal setting and progress monitoring. How do we know that we're doing what we say we're doing? And how do we know if it made a difference? And then the meetings start and end on time. You can extend a meeting with team agreement, but there is an idea going in exactly when the meeting's going to begin and end. And then the meetings are scheduled on the calendar and they're prioritized. So people are, again, actually showing up to the meetings prepared and not otherwise distracted by other things going on as much as possible so that you can stay on topic and collaborate and do that focused problem solving that you all highlighted in the chat. Okay, so now we know what needs to be involved in a good meeting. What needs to be in a good meeting agenda? This is the document that you're using to keep track of what's happening at your meetings. So we need clearly assigned roles and responsibilities. People know how they're expected to communicate in the meeting. There's a documented start and end time. There are clearly outlined topics for discussion. Ideally, you are sharing these before the meeting happens so people have time to think about them before they show up. They have an opportunity to prepare. The notes about each topic discussed at the meeting are also kept in the meeting agenda. So your agenda is not just a list of things you're going to talk about, it eventually becomes a living document where the meeting is archived. And then there's access to notes from prior meetings. What did we decide about that? What questions did we have about that? What data did we review when we were talking about that? All of that would be archived in your meeting agenda. Then there's an action plan for who, what, when, and the status of particular tasks. And then finally, there's space to schedule future meetings. So if something comes up and you don't have time to attend to it in today's meeting, because maybe that's not the objective of what we're doing here today, you are acknowledging it by putting it on the agenda for a future meeting. Okay, so let's talk about the team roles. You've seen these before. The required roles in a school team are the administrator, the school team coordinator, the note taker, the timekeeper, and the school community liaison. Those people are expected to be at every single school team meeting. And then we have the suggested roles of the data analyst and the behavior specialist. If you're sitting in here and you don't know what your role is, or you don't know the roles of other people on your team, please go back to your team roster that was submitted in your readiness packet. That's in your school team folder. So if you're feeling confused about that, that's in there. If you think you need to make a revision, that is also in there and you can bring it up at your next meeting. Okay, so tell me in the chat, what is your team role? And what is one way that your work in that role contributes to a successful team meeting? And I gave you an example here because I feel like we probably don't have a lot of note takers on this call today. So I did a spoiler here. So if I'm the note taker, I contribute by keeping detailed notes about our conversations, decisions, and and action items in the agenda. So what is your role and how is that contributing to a successful meeting? Oh, I love that, Jeremy. Thank you. The data specialist, pulling the data reports that we need to identify goals and if we've made progress. Very helpful. Timekeeper. David, that's been my role before too. And sometimes being the timekeeper is hard because you have to interrupt people or cut them off or reschedule. Oh, the administrator. Nice. Oh gosh, they're all coming in at the same time now. Can't keep track. Sure, the work meets our vision and goals. That is very, very important. The facilitator keeping us more organized and being prepared, very important. Yep, being a timekeeper is hard. Oh, the note taker is another hard job. Okay, we see a lot of good ones in here. Thank you all for participating there. And as you can see, every single team member has something else to contribute to how smoothly a meeting functions. So keep in mind, if a meeting's not feeling the way you wish it felt, you do have agency to contribute in your role in some way or another. Take me to the next slide, Karen. Okay, so now we're going to walk through an example agenda. So right now your meetings are really focused on implementation and sustainability. Maybe you're still in the foundations piece. So this meeting agenda provides some examples of things you might have on your meeting agenda or an upcoming meeting agenda. One thing I want to flag is that the screenshots in here are from the Google Sheets version of our meeting agenda template. So Basque provides two different versions of our meeting agenda. One of them is in Google Sheets, the other one is in Google Docs. They have all the same components. And I'll flag for you places where they might look slightly different depending on the format that your team chooses. Okay, so tour of the Basque meeting agenda. Karen, you're going to have to click a couple times here because we've got some animations on this slide. So the first one is the meeting date and time. So you could fill this in if you've already got all your meetings scheduled. You could go ahead and fill them all in. Next. You've got the assigned roles, so who's here and what's their job. You can also keep attendance off to the right there with a little present. You can check those little boxes. Next, we have the future meeting date and time. This is helpful because if you need to table something for the future, everyone has an idea of when that future meeting is actually going to be. And then below this, what you'll have on your agenda is the prior meeting notes. So those will show up just below. Now, a place I want to flag for you, this is the Google Sheets version, remember? So down at the bottom is the tabs for all the past and future meetings. If you're using the Google Doc version, that actually shows up on the left side of the screen instead of at the bottom, but the tabs function the same way. Okay, so here's an example. I understand the text here is small, so you're welcome to zoom in if you want to be able to see it bigger or access the slides separately. But the big piece here is that we have clearly outlined topics. So Karen, give me a click.
Oh.
So we've got the clearly outlined topics. We see this a lot on agendas. People list the topics we're going to cover. Super helpful, very important. Here you'll also see that they're allocated specific amounts of time. The piece that we often see forgotten on meeting agendas is the notes about what actually happened at the meeting. So the discussion notes, the artifacts of like, what did we talk about? What did we decide? What do we need to come back to? Which documents or data sources did we look at? That's really, really important for historical information about how your team is meeting in the case of turnover or need for additional decision making. So we've got the topics and we've got the notes. Then down at the bottom, we have a space for action planning. So hit it, Karen. Thank you. We got action planning. We've got who's going to do the thing. We have what is the task they need to actually do. What is the target completion date? And then I don't have an arrow for this one. Sorry, false alarm. Is the status. So that status item is really helpful because you might have something in progress but not complete. That would be helpful to indicate here so that it ends up on the agenda at the start of the next meeting. Now I want to draw your attention back to the action planning guide. You've seen this before. You'll see it many, many, many more times. This is in your school team folder. And the goal here is for you to be able to monitor progress on big picture components, but then also the key activities that are part of those big picture components. So we've broken it down into smaller kind of task analysis pieces for you. There's space for notes here as well, including the people who are responsible and the follow-up and completion dates. And we've staggered this by quarter. So each quarter of the school year or after each time we meet, we have a new list of things we'd like you to start working on or make progress on. You can take the items from the action planning guide and slot them into your school team meeting. We created this task list for you. They work together in tandem really nicely so that you know you're making progress because you're tracking it on the action planning guide and you have that evidence in your team meeting. All right, let's talk about next steps. So first, I want you to consider what's working for us. So in your mind, what's already going well in your school team meetings? You all highlighted a lot of really important things. Hopefully those examples were from your school team meetings and not other meetings. The next piece I want you to think about is where can we make small adjustments with big payoffs? Maybe a full overhaul doesn't make sense at this point in the academic year for you, but could you adopt a new agenda template? Or could you be clearer with your assignment of team roles or something like that? Something, a small adjustment with a big payoff. And then finally, how can we set ourselves up for success when we get back to school? So you are likely the only representative from your school team in this meeting. What do you need to do to make adjustments to be ready for your next school team meeting? So let's start with some things you can do. You can adjust your agenda. So you can look at the agenda that you're currently using, whether it's a basket agenda or not, and brainstorm some possible changes and make adjustments as needed. And I want to draw your attention back to your day one school team workbook. This is in your school team folder under day one. Starting on slide 28, there's some supplemental resources in there for you about how to evaluate your current meeting agenda and if it's achieving the goals that you hope that it would be. After you adjust your meeting agenda, you're going to plan your next meeting. So you're going to review the list of post day one to-do items. These are in your action planning guide. You're going to plan for when you might address those. You have several meetings, hopefully, before we see you again at the beginning of December. So what can you address in the meantime, both in and out of your meetings? And then start to add those things to your meeting agenda for upcoming meetings. After that, you can start to fill in agendas for additional meetings throughout the fall semester or even maybe getting into the winter part of the year. And work through the team meeting discussion guide. So we have a discussion guide for you back in that day one workbook for you to talk through how the team meeting is currently functioning and what might need adjusting. All right, So in the chat, I want you to share two things. First, I want you to share how you're going to share this content with your school team, because I've just briefed you on a lot of stuff about meetings. And then the second thing I want you to share is what is one thing you can do before your next team meeting to approve its effectiveness? It might take you a minute to type all those things. Stephen, that's a good one. Budgeting time for discussions and meetings is hard. Emailing the school team, good start. Oh, create an agenda. We've got a template for that, so don't feel like you have to build one because we built you one and it's in your school team folder. Oh, David said commit to the team roles. That's hard. That's tricky, but very, very important so everyone knows what they're supposed to be doing. Oh, Chrissy's been taking notes during the meeting and she's going to share it. Perfect. And Chrissy, you can also share the slideshow and the recording. Both of those will be made available to you. So if people want to watch it themselves, they're welcome to do that. Ooh, Diana, good. Sharing attributes of strong teams. I can't even keep up now because they're all popping in at the same time. Kim says, share the agenda before the meeting. That makes me feel a lot better. I might just be an anxious one, but it makes me feel better. Oh, ensure the calendar of meetings are up to date and shared. I love that, Matt. And you can also go ahead and attach the agenda. If you're going to use the same agenda all the time, a running agenda, right, with tabs, you can just put the agenda in the meeting invite and then it's always there. And if you make edits to it, it doesn't matter because it's in there as a Google Doc, so it'll automatically update. Excellent. This is really, really helpful. Thank you all for sharing these. Oh, Shannon said focus on solutions. True. I love the phrase admiring the problem. Someone shared that with us in the past at a training that sometimes we get deep into admiring a problem instead of focusing on how we can work toward, chipping away at it. And so when it comes to these meeting agendas, we've got some work. We've got some things we can do there. We actually have agency to make adjustments to make these meetings more effective. We hear a lot that people don't have enough time. And a great way to address that is to make the time that you do have as efficient and productive as possible. So this is why we're sharing this content with you. All right. My last slide is what questions do you have?